All right, back to drawing and talking. I'm going to get back into talking about list. That is LISTS, list, the value of making lists. I'll get back to the examples for a second, and then I'll say something more about, why I think they're fun, and also why, something actually somewhat deeper about them. But as I was saying, like one of the, maybe kind of silly list was list of best sports, right, or kind of a ranking. Ranking also makes lists more interesting if you rank things from best, or what best exemplifies whatever qualities you're looking at. So the list I was mentioning was a list of the best sports, and one requirement was that it not have a time limit. Right, that was one of the key ones, and I went to the reasons that was. Yeah, well, you've heard about that, so I'll set all that aside. I had another example that I mentioned. A friend of mine trying to come up with the greatest philosophical works. He's trying to pare his library down to 10. I think I really liked that. I thought that was really quite ambitious, because there's a lot of it's the one thing that makes you admire lists is kind of the ambition of them. Right? There's lots of philosophical works. Although in some ways it's a lot easier than other fields. There are not that many great ones, honestly. I was kind of impressed with the project of paring those down. And also, that's pretty intellectually demanding, right? He was having to figure out, like, okay, what's essential, right? What's really best? What's really most important in a philosophical work? And which ones do it? Which ones do it best, right? What's really crucial? It was a really impressive intellectual exercise. That's one of the great things about lists. Requires you to. So one of the really striking things about lists is it requires you to, if you do it right, it requires you to kind of assess what's really important, right? What really matters. You're separating the wheat from the chaff, right? You're leaving things out. So you're trying to make a decision about, okay, this is like what's really important. This is what really counts. In this area, you've got to make those kind of decisions. So that's a fascinating thing about lists, right? About making those kind of assessments. One thing, making the list, right? They can teach you, they can show you something about yourself, right? Because on the one hand, a list can just reveal to you what you care about. So I kind of have a rough list of what's required for a decent novel, or what's required for a novel that I'm willing to read. One element, if people are doing things with their hands, right? If there's actual work, right? If there's actual physical labor in the book, that for me is a huge plus. And I'm still kind of on the fence about whether that's just me or whether that's a requirement for a great book. I'm kind of thinking that work. I'm kind of thinking that some attention to work, some attention to labor, some attention to something of that sort is really essential for a good or a great novel, because it's such a part of human existence, right? That's such a big part of so many people's lives, right? If the book is going to speak to you, then it seems to me it needs to have something to say about labor. It needs to not just leave on that that huge part of so many people's lives. Let's see what else. In terms of lists, so that is one thing. But it also, like, so for me, it needs to have an element of work, right? People working with their hands. That's even better. For me, outside, right? Novels. I want to read novels, and this also goes for movies. I want to read novels where people are outside. So, not surprisingly, Moby Dick is a real favorite. Basically, outside all the time, unless you count going down inside the ship. Right, the entire novel is kind of out there in the open air, out there in the sea, and the novel is Knut Hamsun, right, and always in the woods, always in some fishing village. So that's a personal thing, right? I really like being outside. I want to read novels where there's outside. This is even more of a requirement for film. Oh my God! If the number of so many just hideous, claustrophobic New York films. I despise New York City for what it's done to films. It's just unbearable. I mean, how many films have you seen where you're just kind of locked inside some kind of miserable New York environment where no one wants to be, where no one wants to stay? And you're just in these sterile rooms, right? You're locked inside these claustrophobic environments. No, go outside, right? Go outside. So the Warriors, right? It's pretty good example. It's not like you can't go outside New York City. The Warriors, right? Probably being a great or a classic example, if you can dig it, suckers. So one thing about the list, though, is that they show you something about yourself, right? They show you something about like what you care about. They can show you your idiosyncrasies, right? Mine in this case. And this is pretty idiosyncratic, although I think the work thing is good for anyone. These are pretty idiosyncratic. These are pretty, these are things for me. Being, it has to be a novel, has to be a side, has to involve. It's a plus if it involves people working with hands. It's a real plus if there's detailed descriptions of kind of physical objects. And there's a Cormac McCarthy novel, there's Blood Meridian, where he describes the saddle and the equipment, the tack, the rifles, and so forth at great length. Speaking of Cormac McCarthy, and this is pretty funny. I remember I read. I should do actually a separate show about this. I remember I read a few years ago there was a review in the New Yorker's review of Cormac McCarthy, and it was pretty great. It was in the New Yorker. And the great thing about the review was just the cluelessness of it, right? It's like, it just really kind of did not get Cormac McCarthy. It was like, why does he need to name the guns, right? Why do the guns have to be described? And I thought, wow, that's, for anyone outside New York City, right, for the audience, New York City is not the audience for Cormac McCarthy. That's people outside Cormac, people reading Cormac McCarthy, people not in New York City really want to know what the guns are. That's really an essential part of it. So, and there were mentions of there are these corny parts of Cormac McCarthy, and to be fair, there are corny parts of Cormac McCarthy where people say pretty much what you would expect them to say. On the other hand, I think I'd probably have to defend it because that is what you would say in that situation. In this case, talking about No Country for Old Men, and as the reviewer says, at some point the man will tell his wife, or pack a bag, we got to go. But that is what would happen in that situation, right? If I came across millions of dollars in a drug bust, not a drug bust, if I came across a massacre or a drug deal gone bad, and I kept the money, I'd tell my wife to pack a bag so that we could flee. Right? That just this is what you do in those situations in New Yorker. That's just what you do. That's just how it all goes down. So to come to the other side of the thing about list, right? So on the one hand, they tell you about yourself, but on the other hand, right, they tell you something about or they can tell you something about the object you're dealing with, right? In the case of let's totally mess this up. All right, getting rid of this. In the case of novels, right, not enough of them, or I think it's probably a pretty recent thing, but too many of them leave out work, there's no kind of element of labor, of work, of the office, no one really trying to capture what that's like, and that's such a huge part of people's lives. It's a real failing, I think, of books. Another sort of rule I have for books, another thing on my list is books, my list of good books, can't be written by a college professor, right? Or if it is written by a college professor, it's a big strike against it if it's written by a college professor. It's just a disaster. I spend enough time around college professors as it is, and also, God, they write, the whole thing about college professors removed from society, right, taken out of the milieu, not in touch with what's going on. Man, truer words, right, that is a really legitimate charge, and it comes across in books. So on the one hand, this is idiosyncratic to me. I don't want to read books by college professors, right? I have to hang out with them enough, so I don't want to read books by them. And then on the other hand, it tells you something about problems with literature. So, gotta go. Peace out.